Everyone, nice to see you. It's 6:02 p.m. I'll call the meeting for August 4th, 2025 to order. And before we get started with our agenda, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just a note to mention that we have Justice Redding that is operating the council meeting and is standing in for the city clerk this evening. So just so you're all aware. And so we'll go ahead and move through our agenda here. We'll start with a roll call. Ms. Redding, when you're ready, we'll do a roll call, please.
Absolutely. I apologize for calling you, Your Honor. I'm back in my court days tonight.
You're good.
Roll call for City Council on August 4th, beginning with Andrea Davis.
So I'm here.
Stacy Anderson.
Present.
Mirta Becerra.
Present.
Bob Campbell.
Here.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
Sierra Farmer.
Present.
Gwen Jones.
Present.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Eric Melson.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage.
Present.
Amber Sherrill. Sandra Vasica.
Present.
We are all set. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Great. We will next move on to minutes from July 21st, 2025. Does anybody have any questions or changes for the minutes as they have been submitted? Okay. Not seeing any online. Then those minutes will remain as submitted. Thank you very much. We have a committee meeting for this August 6th, this coming Wednesday. Ms. Redding, are there any changes to the committee schedule as posted on our city website?
There are no changes.
Okay, great. So folks, it looks like you've got committee meetings starting at 9 in the morning. You do have a lunch break and then it extends through 3 in the afternoon. So all the information, of course, is available online for folks that wish to see the content of those committee meetings this Wednesday. Thank you. We have no special presentations and proclamations this evening. Tonight does kick off the City of Missoula FY26 budget hearing. So we'll move into our public hearings. And as is customary with our budget requirements, there's a whole lot of resolutions. So you'll see that on your agenda this evening. And just of note, and we'll mention this a few times, this kicks off the budget hearing. So tonight is the public hearing, but we will hold that open. And so the City Council will have an opportunity for further deliberation this coming Wednesday during the committee meetings. So Wednesday, August 6th. I did note that we noted that the amendments thus far have been submitted to the city clerk's office. Thank you all very much. And those amendments have been posted on the website, on the budget website, as well as on the committee calendar and agenda for the 6th of August. So in addition to this coming Wednesday, there are, the public hearing will be held open on Monday, August 11th. And we also will have committee meeting work sessions on Wednesday, the 13th. And then the public hearing will wrap up with the budget hopefully being adopted Monday night, August 18th. So that is what we're looking at for our schedule. And so with that, in addition to our public hearings related to the budget this evening, we do have 2 new business items. One deals with a master lease purchase agreement and lease schedule. And this is, you'll hear from Lee Griffin on this. This would have been in a committee report. However, because there were no committee meetings last week, this information was just brought forward. So it has to be on new business this evening. And then the other is a resolution to levy assessments for sidewalk, curb, and gutter improvements. And so we'll hear from staff in terms of how that is being structured this evening. So with that, we'll go ahead and get our public hearings underway. And we'll start with item 5.1, which is the budget FY 2026 annual appropriations and capital improvement program. Mr. Bickle, I am going to go ahead and turn this over to you. And because these public hearings, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6, I would like to be able to have the staff presentation, and we are prepared to speak to each of these motions because it is all related to the fiscal year 26 budget. So, Vice President Becerra, is it appropriate that we speak to all of these resolutions during the staff presentation all at once because it's all one presentation? Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Bickle, I think we're ready for your staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Dale Bickle, Chief Administrative Officer. I'm going to provide a short presentation similar to the Mayor's executive budget presentation a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just going to go through this quickly. I'm happy to answer any questions before you open it up for public comment. Mayor's budget. First, I think what the mayor has brought here is a commitment to financial stability, responsible investment, and responsive public services. So she really is doing that through what the mayor has been calling her cost of living lens, and has been challenging our departments to really think differently about how we deliver those provision of services, being mindful of the rapid increase in property taxes we received in recent years. And so, as you heard, in the previous session, this is amongst the lowest tax increases we've had in a number of years that's being proposed. As far as results of FY25, just in the general fund alone, we are, I'm sorry about my mic, I wonder if I need to move. Yeah, I'll try to not move around too much. We're projecting about a $2.4 million savings over budgeted appropriations in the general fund. This budget is proposing to reduce the structural deficit that we've been struggling with for a few years. It's advancing our housing-focused model relating to helping people in houselessness. We've included fair and competitive police compensation. We're adding positions, but we're not adding them through use of property taxes. We're looking at innovative ways to use our existing gas tax to fund maintenance. And we all know an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's very true in streets. The more we can maintain, the cheaper it is going to be in the long run. I'll talk about a few of the millions of dollars of infrastructure projects that we have going on this year that we have this for our continued investment in our community. Related to our budget strategy, so I mentioned a little bit talking about innovations, and just wanted to highlight a couple of things because every little thing we do counts. So for an example, in the general fund where we are struggling with our budget deficit, the administration reviewed every job prior to posting. And that was to make sure it was needed, make sure the timing was right, and we could maximize the amount of savings. One of the things our new IT director has done is really able to get our arms around all of our software licenses across 900 employees. That was a big deal. It saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in being able to renegotiate and update our licensing, and just even small things like changing the way we use overtime in the police department. We don't do that. You don't do background checks anymore on overtime. We use special service officers. And so all of those things add up to as how we achieved those $2.4 million in savings last year. We're investing more in long-term planning. So we have a better 5-year forecast in our road district funds, and looking at all sources, including gas tax and our grants, to be able to really project what projects we're going to be doing and what maintenance we're going to be doing in the long run. We had an electrification specialist that was part of our was part of CPDI. That was a grant-funded position. When that grant went away, we had an opportunity to keep that electrification specialist, but move that into the transportation department, where we have one less FTE, but we still have that mission. And so that person can not only work on our electrification of our transportation grid, but also work on our transportation planning. So that was a great way to continue that mandate and save some funds. And we're continuing to work on getting long-term contracts in place, more predictability and less risk related to long-term costs. In terms of using funding sources differently, for example, we've had a constant issue of trying to get new street sweepers using CMAQ funds. CMAQ is a federal program related to air quality mitigation. But we were able to, by thinking about that differently and using CMAQ for eligible projects, we were able to use road district funds to get those sweepers and look at some staffing. And again, I mentioned gas tax funding to support street maintenance. This is, council may remember that there's been a many number of years that the streets department is trying to add FTEs related to street maintenance. This mayor's budget adds 2 of those, but through gas tax resources and not through a road district assessment. In our community investment program, our CIP, this is where we do our long-term construction projects. And I've highlighted a few of the short-term ones that we're working now and some of them that are high public profile. Important infrastructure projects. So the Orange and Craig Signal project is under construction now. I'm really looking forward to that. Again, Scott and Phillips Roundabout is under construction. There's a lot of short-term pain happening, but it'll intend to be done before school starts up. We have the big federal grant for the South Avenue Safe Streets for All project. That's in the planning phase now and will move to construction in the next couple of years. And many of you have seen the trail lighting projects that are undergoing that is being paid through the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. Moving into facilities, the budget includes a planning and the start of site acquisition related to Fire Station 6 and implementing the results of that fire station study. The new animal service facility expansion is nearly complete. That will be a ribbon cutting late this summer or fall. We are continuing to work on the Engen Building project, and we foresee starting the abatement in FY26 on that project. That will be funded through our brownfields funds. Public Works mentioned their investments on West Broadway and their new plan to centralize and expand their public works footprint at that site on West Broadway at the Missoula Water Facility. And then we are currently expanding our composting facility with the ARPA grants that we received, and that'll be a great investment in helping our water quality and our composting efforts. And another big one, that Grand Creek Restoration Project, part of the Build Grant area, that's under construction as well. So all of these big projects I've highlighted today are really short-term investments that our residents can see now or in the pretty short term. I want to add that the full summary of our capital improvement program is available on our website. Has tens of millions of dollars of investment over the next few years, and particularly paying close attention to the utility investments. Our water, in particular, our water main replacements are really ramping up, and we're inching closer to that $10 million a year in investment that we're trying to get to. This is a summary slide of the expenditures and how they're allocated through our property tax funded operations. So this includes the general fund, the road district, the park district, the fire initiative, and the conservation lands maintenance levy. That's a total of $121.5 million in expenses that are property tax funded. And this is where, and this is the allocation of how those monies are allocated. So you see that the 2 biggest ones that are here that are tax supported are fire and police. But you can see everything else in there and how that investment goes. The next slide is all operating funds. So not just the property tax funds, but you add in our utilities and you add in Missoula Redevelopment Agency and the Parking Commission. And you can see our budget is right at about $200 million. And you can see our, when you add the utilities in, Public Works becomes our biggest department by expenditures. There, and a lot of capital, capital investment driven things, and for the purpose of capital, what capital is included here is the the amounts for FY26. Talked a little bit about where we're at on our financial condition, and we'll talk about fund balance. That's our cash reserves. Our goal in the general fund and most of our tax supported funds is a 7% of ongoing revenues. That's about $5.1 million in the general fund. So FY25, that $2.4 million savings, and we had a little better year with revenues as well. We're ending FY25 with $1.3 million higher than that original budget, though we're still about halfway to our goal. And our FY26 estimate is a slight increase, but we're not really intending to use fund balance to help manage operations this fiscal year. So that's good news. The property tax impact of all of those things is we're anticipating a 3.5% total increase in property tax funds. Now this is all dependent on the certified values that we did receive today. We haven't had a chance to fully crunch those numbers. It is not as strong as we had hoped, put it that way, but I think we have a path to balancing the budget on that, still work on on getting these financial parameters set up. I'm sorry about this mic. And as a reminder, we'll have a presentation next Monday night at the next continuation of hearing on those numbers. But I do want to talk about this, and we'll talk about these in upcoming meetings, that the individual tax impact very broadly based on the assessments and some of the data that we're seeing. So there's going to be, we're going to be talking about averages, but people are, there's people who are going to see a tax reduction, and there's going to be people who see a tax increase. And so we'll get into that in some of our future conversations as we get a chance to really look at the data we received from the Department of Revenue earlier this afternoon. This is a newer chart that we've started including in the budget, and what it is when I talk about a 3.5% increase in our $200 million total budget, we're anticipating $4.4 million of new revenues that are from property taxes. And this chart shows you where that goes. And you can see 79% of that goes to wage increases for existing employees. And that bar chart to the right shows not only that is for wage increases, but which departments those wage increases go to. And you can see, especially in the tax funded, the biggest tax funded departments, police and fire, all get the lion's share of that tax increase. And then the second biggest piece is our contractual increases. That means that's essentially our inflationary effects. It's our rent increases, it's our software contracts, it's utilities, all of those things that we know are increasing in those budgets. That's what that is. And that's 95%. The remaining 5% of what's in the mayor's budget related to new requests is what you see there. It's a very small piece related to new items, such as adding Engen building maintenance, adding the officer wellness program, support to police and fire, and those types of things there. But we're still able to meet goals with non-tax dollars. So I mentioned the street maintenance positions. We have 2 municipal elections coming up, the primary and the general. That's administered by Missoula County, and that cost is $400,000 that we're going to be using our cash reserves for. we're still emphasizing, some of those key goals. There is that allocation to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of that base $100,000, plus the proceeds we receive from the development of city lands that we hope to see by the end of the calendar year. And then the budget also contains our shift to our housing focused approach, by retaining the housing operations specialist and the new property engagement specialist that is helping people get into permanent housing. So next steps. So open the hearing tonight. As the mayor said, the hearing will continue next Monday, the 11th, and then on to the 18th, where we're adopting. We received our certified taxable values today, as I mentioned, and so we are crunching the numbers, and we'll have more information ready for you Monday night. Budget adoption is August 18th. We statutorily have until September 4th, but August 18th is the last scheduled meeting that council has prior to our statutory date. So with that, happy to answer any questions. And I understand Councilor Becerra will be reading the motions into the record tonight for the public hearing. And that really is the list of actual action items that the council will consider relative to the budget throughout the rest of this process.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bickle. So that is our staff report. Lee Griffin is online for any additional questions, and we'll go ahead and with that bring it over to council questions before we read the motions tonight. Any council questions? Councilor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just curious on,
Excuse me, really quick, I'm sorry to interrupt. The closed caption has turned off, and we've had a request from the audience to see if we can get that sorted on the
Oh,
screen.
great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are having some technological difficulties and are unable to turn on the closed captioning with MCAT without completely restarting our meeting tonight.
Okay. What would it take for us to restart our meeting? Do we have folks in the audience that require closed caption in order to be able to understand the meeting? I'm seeing a head nod. Is it possible to restart the meeting this morning? We do record our meetings for later viewing, but I don't know if we would be able to probably add closed caption to that. Justice, is that an option?
I'm unsure about adding captions after the fact. I'd be happy to look into it. Restarting would require MCAT restarting their computer and ending the Teams meeting, and then restarting it, and all participants online would need to rejoin.
Okay. All right. So, Ron, are we ready to, are we, I'm going to look over. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and restart it this evening. Yep, exactly. Thank you.
I'm okay if that's up to me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Counselor. We'll go ahead and recess for 5 minutes at 6:25. This meeting will resume at 6:30 p.m. Thank you. Yeah, I would suggest logging out of the meeting for now, then logging back in.
Test, test. Test, test. Still test. Keep going. Yep.
All right, folks, it's 6:30 PM and I'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order for August 4th, 2025. I hear that all systems are a go. Thank you very much. Appreciate the slight pause there. How are we? I'm going to just talk here for a minute. All right, we're all on? Okay, great. Great. Looks like our closed captioning's on. Read that in the back there. Okay, great. So I have to log back into the meeting. Give me 1 second here. Okay. 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 All right, folks, we've had the staff presentation, which again is included on the website for additional reference and viewing at a later time. And as noted previously, this public hearing will be opened tonight. It will remain open until the scheduled vote on the fiscal year 26 budget on August 18th. And so with that, we've had the staff presentation. We'll bring it back to questions from council before we hear the motions. Councillor Anderson.
I do believe that Councillor Campbell was first in line before our technical difficulties.
Yeah, he was. Thank you very much.
I'd be more willing to defer.
Pardon?
I'd be more willing to defer.
Okay, well, sure.
Right?
Okay,
With my
I'll
points.
happily go. Thanks so much. So I have 2 questions for Dale. One of them is a request for the next time we see this presentation, or you can update the presentation online. Appreciate the slides, and I love a good pie chart. But could you isolate it to just what the general fund is and the breakout between that? You don't have to go through those numbers now, but it would be great if we could see a slide that talks just the general fund, because the slide that you showed had road districts and park districts and things like that, which are separate on folks's bills when you see your tax statement. And I would just like to be able to talk a little bit about the one that's just the general fund, which is when you're looking at your tax statement says, city portion. So in the future, that'd be great. Second question, if I may, Madam Mayor,
Please.
is could you talk a little bit about, I know that the majority of the revenue increase, or the anticipated new revenue we are going to generate is going to wage increases, and police and fire obviously make up the majority of that, as they are the majority of our general fund. But I have gotten several questions from folks since you presented this 2 weeks ago, I believe, or whenever we kicked off the budget season, about the increase to wages for the fire department, given the fact that they also passed the levy. So I've heard some folks kind of concerned that it seems as though they're kind of having an increase in their taxes right now to cover the increase for wages, but they also then assess the levy. So if you could address that, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Bickle?
We can, at an upcoming meeting, we can specifically address those costs. But I would say in the fire initiative, I mean, part of the initiative, and and the message we were talking about to our residents was fair compensation for our firefighters, and so that was part of that whole plan, was to be able to increase our firefighter wages to a market value, and we had an opener in that contract and another one in the police, similarly, as we were able to get more funds into those available, that we could have those openers to be able to address those issues. But we can talk specifically about the numbers at BNF on Wednesday.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely, you bet. Thank you for your questions. Counselor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If you could lay out for us the remittance portion of the FY26 budget. I know it's in the area somewhere around 3 million. Some of it's going to be, I think it was previously mentioned, directly investment into some street or perhaps infrastructure projects, but a good chunk of it too is going to be taken out, some TIF taken out as remittance back to the city. If you can maybe parse out a little bit better how that works.
Sure. So the mayor's budget includes $3 million of additional one-time revenues to the general fund to help balance that budget, and that's needed because of that ongoing budget deficit that I referenced. Of that $3 million, about $1 million of that is going to direct eligible expenses that were originally budgeted in the general fund, but are eligible for increment because they are infrastructure directly related to those things. So the easiest example of that is the police facility at Catlin. There is debt service on that, and that's infrastructure. And that so the FY26 debt service payment is TIP eligible, and so that would be a direct expense that URD2 can pay, and that's what's contemplated in the mayor's budget. The rest of the $2 million to get to that $3 million is a remittance, and that is and that would be so that's that would be $2 million to the city's general fund, and then which is about a third of the total of the remittance. The rest of that will be of that amount, totaling roughly $6 million, will be also distributed to taxing jurisdictions within those URDs. So Missoula County, the school district, the state mills, they'll all get a portion of that too. So the total remittance will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 million in order for the general fund to receive $2 million.
Thank you. Follow-up funding.
Sure, you bet.
On that 2 million, the remittance portion, looking at the presentation, which thank you, by the way, we talk about the fund balance, the fund reserve, the reserve that, we should have that we're still short on. Would it be fair to say that it's the remittance that gets us any sort of meaningful fund balance to begin with?
Yeah, we're starting the year, what did I say, about $3 million. And this is, in absence of the MRA remittance, we would be, without making substantial cuts, we would be essentially spending all of our fund balance down.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, you bet, absolutely. Any additional questions from council at this time? Okay, I see hands up. Those are remaining hands, so I think we're good to go. Yeah, answered questions. Great, thanks. Appreciate that. All right, so I hear no additional questions from council. With that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing with hearing the motions, and we will, Councilor Becerra, I'll ask that you read each of the titles of the motion for all of the public hearings, because they're all associated with the budget this evening. As mentioned previously, this public hearing will remain open until August 18th, when council takes a vote. At that time, all of the motion language will be read into the record, but for the time being, the titles of the motions will suffice for the start of the public hearing.
Sounds great. All right, so the first motion pertains to budget fiscal year 2026 annual appropriations and capital improvement program. The next motion is pertaining to budget fiscal year 2026 resolutions levying assessments. And those are for Park District 1 and Road District number 1. And the Tourism Business Improvement District, Downtown Business Improvement District. The third motion pertains to budget fiscal year 2026, and those are resolutions adopting fees. Those are for Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Business Licensing, Land Use and Planning and Engineering fees, Police fee schedule, Fire fee schedule. The next motion pertains to budget fiscal year 2026, Street Maintenance District number 1. And the next motion pertains to budget fiscal year 2026, Street Lighting Improvement District. The next motion pertains to budget fiscal year 2026, resolution levying taxes for municipal and administrative purposes. I think that's it.
That is it for the public hearings. Thank you so much. All right. Public hearing has opened. It is now time for public comment. If you are seeking a copy of the agenda, there are some out on the table, on the way into council chambers. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to make comment on any of these items in our public hearing this evening? Not seeing any in the audience here. Any members of the public online wishing to make comment this evening? Or any of the items 5.1 through 5.6, all relative to fiscal year 2026 budget. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody online either. Okay. All right, with that wraps up our public comment portion of the public hearing, and we'll bring it back for council comments. Are there any council comments tonight? Not seeing any. Then that wraps up our start of the public hearing for FY26. Thank you all very much, and we'll have several opportunities to be together again over these next couple of weeks to discuss the budget, hear your amendments, and get this approved. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So now we'll move on to new business. New business item 6.1 is a master lease purchase agreement and lease schedule. And we have Lee Griffin online to give the staff presentation on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm bringing forward the master lease purchase agreement and lease schedule and related resolution. Wrong one. So this resolution approves the form of this master lease. It will have a purchase agreement and lease schedule. It authorizes the execution and delivery of a rate lock. So we haven't closed on that yet. We have certain parameters illustrated within this resolution, and authorizes the execution and delivery of that master lease purchase agreement, the schedules and related documents. So a little background around here. Every year we have the annual budget and community investment program, which is adopted by City Council. Within those are a list of items that we tend to finance. Once we have identified those needs, that list of items there's a schedule that is attached to the agenda. It's a spreadsheet, 2 pages. You can see all of the items that we have determined it wise to finance. We use a non-appropriation lease, and so this means every year that Council approves the budget, it approves the amount to pay the debt service on this lease. This year, for the first year in many years, we issued an RFP for an updated agreement, and using Baker Tilly as our financial advisors and Dorsey and Whitney as bond counsel, we decided to go with JP Morgan Chase Bank. The financial terms and safeguards, that rate lock mentioned earlier, is a principal not to exceed $7.3 million, true interest cost not to exceed 4.95%, and the term not to exceed 15 years. And that term is closely aligned with the lifetime of each of those items that we finance. And I'm here to ask the council to approve this resolution. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Do we have any questions from council? No, I'm not seeing any questions from council in the room or online. Then we'll go ahead and we will hear the main motion. And this is a master lease purchase and agreement. So Ms. Becerra, this is back to you if you wouldn't mind reading the motion this evening. Thank you.
All right. I move that we approve a resolution approving the forms of a master lease purchase agreement and lease schedule authorizing the execution and delivery of a rate lock agreement subject to certain parameters and authorizing the execution and delivery of the master lease purchase agreement, lease schedule, and related documents.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Becerra. Motion is on the floor. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item this evening? How about online? Any members of the public wishing to make comment? Okay. I'm not seeing any online either, so we'll bring this back to the council to see if there are any comments from council. And I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item. Please, Ms. Redding, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Voting to approve a resolution approving the forms of a master lease purchase agreement and lease schedule, authorizing the execution and delivery of a rate lock agreement subject to certain parameters, and authorizing the execution and delivery of the master lease purchase agreement, lease schedule, and related documents. Stacey Anderson,
Yes.
Mirta Becerra,
Yes.
Bob Campbell,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
Sierra Farmer,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Eric Melson,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Sandra Vasika.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll now move on to item 6.2, which is the resolution to levy assessments for sidewalk, curb, and gutter improvements. And Ms. Griffin, you're on deck for the staff report.
Thank you. So this item is titled Resolution to Levy Assessments for Sidewalk, Curb, and Gutter Improvements. But in fact, what we are asking City Council tonight is to set the public hearing to consider the resolution levying these assessments. Just as tonight is the public hearing, which includes the levying of the Park District, Road District, and so forth. This one is for the sidewalk and curb levies. So in the past, council has ordered the installation of this work, sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approach improvements. And these projects are in the past. They have already happened. We have 3 that we are needing to finance and assess to the benefited property owners. So these are the Warden Turner right-of-way, Ivy Franklin Phase 1 right-of-way, and a variety of miscellaneous assessment parcels. And you can see that these had been ordered in between December of 23 and March of 25. So the next steps with this are public hearing notice on assessments. We published this in the Missoulian twice. Then we have a notice of hearing and assessments, which will actually be mailed to the parcel owners to be assessed. They've received multiple mailings from Public Works during the sidewalk and curb work that was being done. On August 20th, we'll bring forward 2 resolutions. Actually, I'll bring forward a financing resolution and an assessment resolution. That assessment resolution will have that public hearing on the 25th, and that financing resolution can happen via the consent agenda if council so chooses. The financing resolution is interesting. We're going to do an internal financing due to the very small dollar amount that is being assessed this year. So again, I am trying to move my slideshow forward. I just want to ask City Council tonight to set the public hearing for August 25th so we can go ahead and start with those public notices. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Griffin. Do we have any questions from council tonight? Councilor Campbell, thanks. Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Lee, for the presentation. I'm just curious, are there maps or zones or boundaries that go along with these assessment districts that can we put into the record or put into future agenda when this comes back to us?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear that. I was wondering if somebody could repeat that.
I can go ahead and repeat the question, and then Counselor Campbell, let me know if I don't get this correct. The question that Counselor Campbell asked is, will there be any zones or maps associated with the area where the special assessment is taking place for these sidewalks?
So what we will bring forward when we bring forward these resolutions, we will actually bring forward a list of those benefited properties and the amounts that they are to be assessed. Especially with that miscellaneous parcel, we don't have a lot of maps identifying them, so thought that that list might be the best way to present that information.
Counselor Campbell, you have an additional question?
Yeah, I guess I do have another question. How much more work would it be to generate a map based on those lists? I think if I look at a list of names, if you're talking like names and addresses and stuff, it's kind of hard for one to get a visual picture of how expansive or how narrow those districts are compared to where the work's being done. I would prefer personally to see a map if at all possible.
Counselor Campbell?
Certainly, I'll reach out to Public Works and see what we can pull together.
That's great. Thank you, Lee. And
Thank you.
You bet, absolutely. And I'll just emphasize again that this is for work that council has already authorized. So this is the work of sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approaches for the Warden Turner right-of-way improvements, as well as the Ivy and Franklin Phase 1 right-of-way improvements project. And then the miscellaneous assessments parcels, we'll go ahead and make sure we're identifying those as well. So just wanted to note that again for the conversation. I saw Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, I just guess wanted to say I also agree with Mr. Campbell. It'd be super helpful to see a map because when I look at the list, it's hard to know exactly which properties these are. And I recognize that'll be more work for staff, though I also think it'll be something that'll be helpful in the future.
Great, thank you. I don't see any problem with us being able to get that ready for you. Thanks for making that request. We'll work on that for the public hearing and for the committee discussion on the 20th. All right. Any other questions from council this evening? I'm not seeing any. All right. So no questions. We'll go ahead and we'll hear the main motion. And whether this be Public Works or Budget and Finance, Councilor Becerra, it's you. Thank you.
All right. I move that we set a public hearing for August 25th, 2025 to levy tax assessments of $310,000 by $158.47 for repayment of completed curb, sidewalk, and gutter improvements for the Warden Turner right-of-way improvements project and Ivy Franklin Phase 1 right-of-way improvement project and miscellaneous assessment parcels, curb and sidewalk improvements as per resolution 8839.
All right. Thank you, Councilor. Any public comment on this agenda item this evening? Not seeing any in the room. How about online? No public comment online either. We'll bring it back to council. Any council comments on this agenda item this evening? All right. Great. Not seeing any council comments. There is no vote. We are setting, oh, you are voting to set a public hearing. So, we have to vote to make a public hearing? No, what am I thinking? Kind of 1 week off and I'm like out of my practice. So that be it. We're not taking a vote. We're setting the public hearing for August 25th, 2025. Thank you very much, Ms. Griffin. All right. That wraps up our new business. We'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Ms. Redding, if you'll share the list on screen for folks that are in audience and watching on MCAT, that would be great. Items on the consent agenda were approved in city council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda. And then we'll invite community to comment on these items before we vote. So, Ms. Redding, when you're ready, if you'll go ahead and read the list aloud, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Voting on the consent agenda to ratify accounts payable for checks dated July 29th, 2025 in the amount of $1,992,552.79. To approve accounts payable for checks dated August 5th, 2025 in the amount of $1,934,460.58. To approve and authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement with Morris and Meyerly for the programmable logic controller used at the resource recovery facility at a cost not to exceed $118,900.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda tonight? All right. Any public comment online? All right. Are there any council members that wish to separate any items tonight? All right, not seeing any. Then, Ms. Redding, we can take a voice vote on the consent agenda when you're ready.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Next, we'll move on to public comment on non-agenda items. We have no items under our regular business this evening, so we'll move right on to public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public wishing to make comment on non-agenda items this evening?
BK, Montana. I'm recovering from toxic stress to the tune of 2 to 1. If I would have gone into 1 a week ago, Sunday, I would have passed out. The contributing factors of this toxic stress has been compiled for the last 2 years. And latest is the queen of Tyler Little Dog, the queen, spreading the gospel of chauvinism. The disease in this city seems to be manifesting to your amusement, and I can see it. And the fact of the matter, as I feel threatened at those facilities, would be no different than the public being threatened at the public parks with these individuals. And I remember how I was threatened back in 2023 and the regard of the threatening people, and it continued. The fact of the matter, where I'm at is a health facility to the fact that they could document the problem of these individuals that are spreading a disease, the equivalent of COVID. And the problem is, it has manifested that I don't feel really well. When you don't feel really well, and you lay on the concrete to sleep because of the toxicity of the community. And what it tells me, I have no use for the human race or society for what it condones and appreciates of 1110 West Broadway and the contributing of 1919 North Ave for the last 2 years. I understand what I can't say that I put in emails. And I realize the circumstances. If I was a movie producer in regards to the Marvels, those people would destroy society.
Thanks for coming down tonight, Big K. Other members of the public wishing to make comment on items not on the agenda?
Hi, my name is Sage Bennett, and I'm speaking today representing myself and solely myself. I would like to start off by saying I really appreciate the comment that is oftentimes given by community members and by community members that just gave comment today, highlighting the ways in which the Poverello and the Johnson Street Shelter are essential to the care of individuals in our community, and how shutting down these shelters contributes to individuals treating those who are unhoused in incredibly harmful and prejudiced ways. Not only this, but it jeopardizes those lives of those individuals, the hundreds of individuals that are going without shelter once Johnson Street is shut down, that will be residing outside in harsh heat conditions, in harsh winter conditions that are life-threatening, and we have seen have been life-threatening throughout the years in Missoula. And the way that that is not being prioritized, that those safety of individuals, of our neighbors that live in this community, that we seem to not care about this, does show this lack of humanity that was just spoken about a second ago. It is so upsetting to see that not only does this happen, and not only is this a choice that our city council is making, but then on top of it, we are funding police to go out and fine individuals $50 a day for trying to survive outside. At the very least, if you're not going to put another shelter in place, if you're not going to designate an area for individuals to be able to camp safely and not experience harassment from other individuals in our community, could you at least stop fining people $50 a day for trying to survive in our community? I can't even begin to comprehend how that makes any sense, as it backs up our jail systems, as individuals would honestly probably rather be in prison or blocking up our hospitals rather than getting fined and going without shelter and having to experience such harsh weather conditions that they don't know if they'll survive or not. I couldn't pay $50 a day for the rest of my life. How is someone expected to find housing when paying these fines, when all of their money is going towards paying these fines? How are you supposed to pay for a rental application fee? Those cost $50. So are you supposed to, not pay a fine and risk going to jail? Or are you supposed to apply to an apartment? These are like such basic things, and there's so many other issues in the 12.60 ordinance that it is mind-boggling to me that at least this one very small thing is not changed.
Thank you for coming down and making comments tonight, Sage. Any other members of the public wishing to make comment on items not on the agenda this evening? Okay, not seeing any in the room. How about any members of the public online? Savannah Geary.
Am I unmuted?
You are
Yeah,
unmuted.
okay.
Yes, you are.
Great, thank you. First, I just want to echo what Sage just said extremely eloquently. None of that makes any sense, and it's really important. So just, I'm not going to be able to say it as eloquently, so ditto to all of that. The thing that I wanted to say was that I have been trying to follow the agenda items tonight in advance, and a lot of the documents are very dense, and it's I'm just the everyday person. It's kind of hard to get context just from what's posted, and I understand that, like, obviously things get explained in the meetings, but that doesn't really help if you're trying to follow along beforehand. And I would love personally to see like more plain language summaries with those agenda items, even if it's just like, here's what this is and here's why it matters, it would make a huge difference. And also just, I know that going through the budget stuff is kind of thankless work, and just, I also appreciate you for doing that, so.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Savannah. Anybody else online? All right. I am not seeing anybody else online. So that wraps up our public comment on non-agenda items. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down. I just have one brief comment from the mayor here, and it is to address the 4 lives that were taken in Anaconda on Friday from a gunman that shot and killed folks the morning of Friday morning in the Owl Bar. And I wish to not only just my deepest condolences to that community. It's a very close knit community. But I do want to thank the members of our Missoula Police Department who were able to offer support and help in a time of needed capacity for the small community of Anaconda. And we continue to lend support as we are able, as well as to the members of the Missoula Fire Department. The Missoula Fire Department have been providing peer support to the first responders in that community, and it's been greatly appreciated across all sectors of the community there in Anaconda. So I just want to give my deepest gratitude for our team members here in Missoula helping support Anaconda in this grave time. And the suspect is still at large in the Anaconda area, and we are keeping, obviously, eyes and ears to the ground as we know more. But we're hoping for an expedient capture of this dangerous individual. And again, it's just heartbreaking to see this happen here in Montana. So I'm going to save any other comments and move on to council comments, and I'll go ahead and start with Councilor Jones this evening.
First of all, thanks for bringing up the Anaconda shootings. It was just a horrific story, and it went nationwide, and I forget, there have been numerous mass shootings this year already in America, and now Montana's on the map also, so it's just horrible and sad. The one thing I was going to mention is a totally different topic, and that is that the fair opens tomorrow morning. So if people want to head to the fairgrounds, it runs from Tuesday through Sunday. They've got a great lineup with all sorts of fun stuff going on. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the county and to Emily Gibson, who is a prior city councilor who really spearheaded turning the fairgrounds around and redeveloping a lot of it. I think it's just fantastic these days. So go enjoy the fair.
Indeed, thank you. And it's free admission. Thank you. Council Farmer.
Thanks. I'll just briefly echo your condolences to the Anaconda community. I work closely with many of those folks, and in a small community like that, you either know the victims personally or you know a family member of theirs, and so it's really heartbreaking for a small community exponentially than it would be, in a larger community. So I didn't realize that we had so many resources helping them out, so that's really great to hear, and also just send my condolences to that community.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Carlino.
I can pass.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Campbell.
I'll pass as well this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nugent?
Thanks, I'll pass.
All right, you bet. Councilor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. I really also appreciate your comments about the shooting in Anaconda, and Montana is an amazing place, and this is the wrong thing to be on the national news for. And I do also want to acknowledge the work that Missoula Police Department, Missoula Fire Department is doing. One of our new rookies is actually from Anaconda, and so there's an even deeper connection outside of just the first responder family. And so I know that folks are making sure that he's okay, and and we as a community stand ready to kind of do whatever we can if need be. And that's what it means to be Montanans. And without knowing a lot about the circumstances of this gentleman and what caused him to do this, it does appear that mental health challenges can plague everybody, and we are very fortunate to have a mobile support team in our community, and that the community continued to support that with the passage of the fire levy, and just encourage people to take advantage of that, check in on folks, and if you see something, say something. Thanks.
Indeed, well said. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Becerra.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, just a fun history lesson for everyone here. So on December 1st, 1908, the Forest Service designated the Region 1 Northern Region National Office. 1908. It wasn't until 1930 that it was redesignated and fully staffed, really became the permanent presence in Missoula that it is today. So nearly 100 years ago, our Forest Service office was propped up. And it's Region 1 for a reason. Region 1 is where the Forest Service really began. This is where the idea of wilderness began. This is where the first let it burn policy for managing wildfires began. This is where the smoke jumper program began. This is where the remount, 9 Mile Historic Remount Center, where all of the traditional tools, crosscut saw, filing happens. This is the beating heart of the Forest Service, and there are efforts underway to consolidate all 9 of the Forest Service regions and remove the almost 100-year-old office we have here in Missoula today. I think that's a tragedy. I think it's an intentional brain drain to force people out of the agency, to reduce institutional knowledge, to handicap an agency that manages 640 million acres of your public land. And I would hate to see this happen. I think it would be a big mistake if these regions were consolidated and the Region 1 office in particular here in Missoula were to go away. They're talking about moving these offices to other locations, California, Colorado, none of which include Montana. So reach out to your elected officials, your congressional delegates, and let them know that this is a bad idea. We need to keep this office in Missoula, keep all the Forest Service folks that are employed at the regional office here in Missoula. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of tough news out, and I wanted to also offer my condolences for the folks in Anaconda. I think it's time America really starts to consider some different gun laws and how guns are overtaking every aspect of our lives and our safety. And a couple things that come to mind are everybody knows I'm dual citizen Australian. Australia's had one mass shooting, and they had one, and the government said everybody needs to turn in their guns. We're not going to ever let this happen again. And they did, and I recognize that will never fly here. But we need more meaningful and serious gun legislation to ensure that we're safer. My youngest daughter moved back to Australia to finish high school because she was afraid of getting shot in school, and active shooter drills traumatized her. So ready for some gun reform. I also wanted to offer condolences to the family of Greg Damon, who's the unhoused individual that was hit and killed last week. To no fault of his own. He was on the sidewalk. It looks like the person who's hit him has been charged with a homicide. And, it's just a tough place that we're living in right now. And I think a lot of people are hurting, whether they're losing their jobs or know people who've been injured or I don't know. I just, things feel pretty tough right now. And I think that the city councilors, I hope we continue to do work that is meaningful and gives our community hope, because things feel real tough right now.
Thank you for your comments, Counselor Jordan. Yeah, indeed. Terrible tragedy last week. It's a lot of hard news right now. Thank you. Any members of council online that wish to make council comment this evening?
I'll pass tonight, but thank you.
You bet.
I'll also pass. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bet. Okay. That wraps up our council comment, general comments from city council members, and I'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 7:15 p.m. Thank you.